The biggest challenge that anyone has today, if you're trying to do creative stuff, if you're trying to make movies or make music or write books or write a blog, is really kind of breaking out and standing out and figuring out how to get noticed in this incredibly noisy and chaotic environment. These 5 folks have been in the vanguard of figuring out how do you build an audience online, how do you build a fan base, and how do you get them to support your work.
I left my day job to become a musician, and because I couldn't think of anything else to do, I just started putting out a new song every Friday just for free on my website. And for me, just having plain old MP3s out there and putting them out without regard to whether or not I thought they were good.
Yeah.
And just allowing the people out there to decide what they liked. I did this like folky cover of this rap song. But when I put it out, I was a little ashamed. I was like, I wasn't able to write a song this week. Like, I sort of screwed up. I just did a cover. I don't even know if it's very good, but that was the one that people went crazy for.
Initially having a consistent level of release. I can't stress that enough. I have a theory that the way that people surf the internet is they have 5 to 10 bookmarks and they just rotate through those, and they might splinter off of their rotation when they get a link going somewhere, but they just stay to those 5 or 10 bookmarks. And I thought if we can get in that rotation for people, that's half the battle. And then we went from about 3,000 readers a week on our site, which was an old video game site. We went from that, and in 6 months we had about 1 million viewers a week.
I realized that I had to create a sort of safe haven for progressives, and this is 2002, where there were no progressive voices in the media landscape. I was a comments Nazi, banning people and deleting comments from right-wingers, and I was accused of, spitting on the First Amendment and so on and so forth. But that created a safe space for progressives to start a discussion, and by focusing that heavily on the community from day one, I think that also helped spur a lot of the growth.
We had a really successful campaign. It was around Canadian copyright laws. They were trying to implement something up in Canada very similar to the DMCA, and we had these copyright criminals signs that we had made on the site to sort of suggest that these laws were going to make everyday people into criminals. We asked people to print it, take a picture of it, and upload it, and that took off really, really well.
My approach has always been just to adopt every single website tool that I could find. Joining YouTube, going to anything that happened to be popular, I would use it because the traffic is there.
Be available in as many ways as possible, and the people who like to tune in those ways will be able to find you.
Schedule specific time to just spend the day communicating with people on all these different platforms.
It's actually becoming a little bit overwhelming. There are now so many channels. You have one message, you can spend all day sending it out on each one of these channels.
Instead of going out and going on MySpace and then going on Facebook and trying to keep up with all that, but we built out a community site, and over 5 years, we haven't grown like a Facebook or MySpace, but we have 750,000 users that are registered on the site now.
I mean, those users are your users, and they won't go away.
Whether you use YouTube or Dig or whatever in the future, whatever is in vogue at that time, make sure you have your anchor point. Make sure that those efforts are for coming back to your site, so that no matter what the topology is, people know they can come to your site.
95% of my revenue is advertising, so it's predicated on traffic. I have 5% on site subscriptions, which is really just the ability to turn off advertising.
For me, it's about 40 to 50% is people buying music online, digital sales.
Between 2003 and late last year in 2008, we had no advertising whatsoever. We introduced our premium level, we call our sponsor level, where there's a fee for other portions of our site, and then they would have early access to videos. And in the first season, that was essentially just pre-ordering the DVD.
So let's start hearing some questions from you. And I also want to mention to the panelists, I want you to ask questions of your fellow panelists. So give that some thought too. Yes?
How do you get the audience, or how do you influence the audience to spread the word about your content?
I think it's really important to find something to get them involved in, do things like start a project where they can provide you input, what they want to see next,
Because once they feel like they start to have some level of ownership in it, they're not going to sit on it. If they're involved with something they think is cool, even just on a community level, they will spread it.
There was definitely that sense and that effort that the audience, when we released the film, would feel invested in it if they had a hand in creating it. I promised that if you sent the stuff and if you participated, I would make a film, and that's one of those things that keeps you working.
The first 3-4 years of my writing, I averaged about 1 million words written a year, and I type fast, but that's still, there wasn't time for much else, and I have a wonderful wife who was really understanding about all of this. But you make sacrifices.
There's a real challenge to balancing the creative side of what you do with the business side of what you do, and I often find myself spiraling out of control and doing so much of the non-marketing marketing that I forget to actually write songs, which is the whole point. That
I have the same
did
problem.
this. Yeah.
I get to the point where I won't be painting for months, and then I burn out. So,
It's not for
but-
everybody for that reason,
right.
I think.
You can't slack and be successful in this world. There's too much competition, too many people trying to get those eyeballs and those ears and whatnot. So unless you work it really hard, you're not going to be able to cut through.
You have to be really brutal with yourself. You have to make really hard and fast rules, like Tuesday is an all creative day, and I'm not even going to look at my email. Stop checking your feeds. Stop refreshing your email. Don't even turn it on.
One of my cinematographers came into the edit suite when I was editing, and he was blown away that I was editing with my email open. Yeah, and I know, like, from what you guys are saying, maybe I shouldn't have it, but
No, I'm terrible. I do the same thing. I don't have a creative day. I should.
But one of the things.
I want to thank you for all the great questions, and please help me thank these panelists for all their insights.